The alchemist's knife was already under the cub's cracked crystal. One twist, and the tiny antler beast would be ground into tonic powder. Lady Selene Brindle treated the cage like inventory. Selene said, "Crack the core carefully. The powder still sells." I had woken up in Rowan Arden's body 10 seconds ago. No manas, no ranks, no map. Only a blue window hovered above the cage. The system window said, "Monster appraisal unlocked." The system public readout said, "Prism Antler Cub, level 2, F rank, core collapsing." Then my private readout opened and said, "Hidden ceiling, triple S+. Primary root, Guardian Herd Sovereign." The private readout continued, "Unlock condition. Chosen bond required." Everyone else saw a failed cub. My screen marked a future guardian. Selene lifted one jeweled finger. Selene said, "Proceed." The alchemist reached for the latch. My power had one rule: touch the monster. If the bond answered, I could reveal what the world missed and open the first evolution step. If it refused, the knife would crack Prism's core before I even learned how this world worked. I reached through the bars. Her fur was hot, brittle, and shaking, but she pressed her forehead into my fingers. The teal crack in her chest stopped spreading. The system window said, "Stabilization successful. Prism rose from level 2 to level 3, core collapse paused, full evolution locked." No giant transformation followed. The system gave me one level, one warning, and one living problem. Evolution still needed feed, treatment, trust, territory, and time. That meant the power was not a cheat, it was a chance. Besides Selene, her perfect radiant stag lowered its head under a forced golden collar. The system marked it level 54, A rank, trust unavailable, growth unstable. The dying cub had one thing the perfect beast did not have: a choice. Then the clerk raised a cracked deed. The clerk announced, "Grafin Ranch, bankrupt permit suspended, condemned stock transfer open." Behind him stood Myra with a ledger, Darren with a spear, and Torn watching only the cub. They were not nobles, they looked like people who had no more options. The deed offered one ruined ranch and every condemned beast Selene wanted stripped for parts. The system turned the deed blue. The system window said, "Moral choice, accept Grafin Ranch and all condemned stock. Reward ranch interface. Failure, core extraction begins." The alchemist moved for the latch. "Grab the deed first," I said. "I accept Grafin." The disposal hall went quiet. The cage stopped rattling. Myra exhaled. Torn whispered she should be dead. I said she chose not to be. Selene's smile disappeared. The radiant stag looked at Prism for 1 second too long, until its color flashed and dragged its gaze away. The perfect beast was not loyal, it was trapped. The clerk recovered first and said, "Ownership transfer is binding. Grafin receives the condemned stock unless a superior buyer challenges before departure." The system window said, "Ranch interface unlocked. Chain quest issued. Protect Prism for 72 hours and keep Grafin's shelter status alive." System panel continued. "Failure. Grafin loses shelter status. Brindle Holdings may reclaim all condemned stock." The first roster appeared: Gale the Wounded Hawk, Brawn the Runt Piglet, Hollow the Unstable Slime, and Cinder the Fever Crow. None of them were finished. I tried to select an upgrade. The system denied it and said, "Missing feed, treatment, trust, and territory." If it had worked instantly, I would not have trusted it. Selene looked at me like I had purchased garbage. I looked at the cages like I had found a starting roster. To her, they were scraps. To me, they were tomorrow's army if I kept them alive. Torn wrapped Prism in a patched blanket, and Darren opened the side gate. The radiant stag watched us leave until its collar dragged its gaze away. I had 72 hours to prove condemned stock could survive noble blood. The cart waiting outside the disposal hall had 3 wheels that looked trustworthy and one that looked ready to quit. Myra noticed me staring. Myra said, "Do not insult the cart. It has outlived 2 ranch owners." I said, "That is not comforting." Myra said, "It was not meant to be." Darren climbed onto the front bench and took the reins. Torn sat beside the stacked cages, one eye on the road and one on the cub in my arms. Myra sat across from me, ledger open, already writing like the numbers could hold the ranch together. The antler cub slept under Torn's blanket, still too light. I tried beginner appraisal again. The system window said, "Beginner appraisal. Target, unnamed antler cub. Level 3, rank F condition, stabilized, starving, need warm mash, clean water, mineral trace." No instant evolution, no legendary mount, just a level 3 cub and a list of needs. Myra watched my face. Myra said, "The floating windows again." I asked, "You believe me?" Myra said, "I believe something happened in that hall, and I believe the nobles became angry because it interrupted their profit. That is enough for now." The cart rolled out of the capital district and down through a town built around the beast trade. That was where the first quest began to make sense. A butcher stall sold horn scraps by weight. An alchemist shop advertised Monomero tonic. Arena boys led chained animals toward a red tent where rich people paid to watch so-called failed stock fight until they broke. I saw a one-eyed goat pull against a rope. A child tried to touch it. A noble handler slapped the child's hand away and said, "That one already sold. Don't soften merchandise." The system marked the entire street in cold blue. The system window said, "Context update. Condemned beasts feed 3 markets: alchemy extraction, arena entertainment, and noble contract experiments. Grayfin absorbs rejects before disposal." I looked at Myra and asked, "That's what Grayfin did?" She did not look proud. Myra said, "We bought time, not salvation. Weak stock came to us before auction. Some recovered, some didn't." Myra continued, "But we did not crack cores for powder and we did not sell beasts to arenas." I asked, "Why would nobles allow that?" Myra said they didn't care while the ranch made enough profit to pay fees. Then the sickness started. Then the debts came, then Brindle Holdings bought the supply contracts and squeezed until the gates cracked. Torn adjusted the blanket around the cub. Torn said old Grayfin had rules: no forced bond, no core stripping, no arena resale. Darren snorted and said, "Rules are expensive." Myra closed her ledger halfway and said, "And cheaper than becoming them." The cart passed the last market gate. Behind us, the purple-haired noble girl stood on a balcony with 2 red-haired men beside her. She smiled like someone watching a shipment leave her warehouse. The system flashed and said, "Chain quest created. Prove Grayfen should exist. Talk to the people Grayfen still protects." The system panel continued. Objective: reach Grayfen and hear 3 local testimonies. Community reward: morale stabilization. Personal reward: level progress and an appraisal upgrade condition. So leveling was only the bait. The ranch was the real quest. The town below Grayfen was smaller than the capital district, but somehow felt more alive. It sat around a muddy road, a water wheel, and a row of repair shops. People stopped working when our cart passed. Some stared at me, some stared at the cub. Most stared at Myra like she was returning from a funeral with bad news. A boy ran beside the cart and asked, "Miss Myra, did they take the hounds?" Myra called back, "Not yet." An older woman at a bakery lifted a cloth bundle toward Torn. Torn said, "Stale bread ends for the workers." Myra's jaw tightened. Torn said, "We cannot pay today." The baker said, "I know, pay when the ranch breathes again." The system chimed softly. The system window said, "Testimony 1 registered. Local families still depend on Grayfin's survival." The blacksmith shouted, "If Brindle gets the land, they'll close the lower road." Darren looked at me. Darren said, "Grayfin guards the pass, not officially, practically." The system marked the second testimony. The system window said, "Testimony 2 registered. Grayfin's collapse threatens local trade access." We stopped at a cracked trough outside a small healer's shed. Lysa, a young herbalist with sleeves rolled to her elbows, came out holding a jar of green salve. Lysa saw the cub and asked, "Another one?" Torn said, "Court disposal hall." Lysa's mouth tightened and said, "They keep sending living beasts to extraction now." I asked, "How many?" Lysa said, "Too many." Then she looked at me directly and said, "If Grayfen falls, every sick beast in this district becomes ingredient stock." The third testimony made the stakes clear. The system window said, "Testimony 3 registered. Quest step complete. You now understand why the town needs Grayfen." The system panel continued. Community reward: morale no longer collapsing. Personal reward: experience plus 40. Appraisal upgrade condition revealed: diagnose a ranch system failure. The cub stirred in my arms. Lysa reached toward it, slow and gentle. Lysa said, "Does she have a name?" I looked down. Not SSS plus, not legendary, not a weapon. Just a small thing still choosing to breathe. I said, "Prism." The system accepted it with a quiet blue pulse. The system window said, "Temporary name registered. Prism. Trust increased, bond condition approaching." Myra looked away like she did not want anyone seeing relief on her face. Grayfen Ranch appeared at the top of the hill after sunset. Broken gate, sinking roof, empty pens, 1 watchtower leaning against the sky. The system placed the next quest over it. The system window said, "Main quest updated. Keep Grayfen alive for 7 days. Assets: 1 level 3 unstable cub, exhausted staff, unpaid workers. Risks: poisoned water, feed shortage, seizure clock." The system panel continued. Feed shortage and seizure clock. Personal reward: level 3 plus skill choice. Failure: community loses beast shelter. Myra climbed down before the cart stopped and said, "Welcome to Grayfen." A board snapped loose from the gate and fell into the mud. A loose board fell from the gate into the mud. Darren sighed. I looked at the dead ranch, the sleeping cub, and the blue quest window only I could see. I said, "Yeah, that feels about right." The Grayfen office had 1 sturdy table, 2 broken chairs, and a chalkboard covered in bad arithmetic. Myra erased the old numbers and wrote new ones. 17 unpaid workers, 9 sick beasts, 3 days of feed, 1 clean well maybe, 12 days until seizure. Then she underlined the last line until the chalk broke. Myra asked any questions. I raised one hand. Myra stared at it. I asked, do we have money? Myra said no. I asked medicine. Myra said almost no. I asked guards. Darren lifted a hand. Myra corrected, guard. The system opened a new panel at the worst possible time. The system window said ranch status. Level 0 authority, disputed morale, fragile beast trust, low water safety, unstable feed security, failing. That was not a status screen, that was a status report with a knife behind it. Prism whimpered from the blanket on the table. Lysa had followed us from town and was already mixing warm mash in a cracked bowl. Torn checked Prism's crystal chest mark with the careful hands of someone who had seen too many small lives end badly. Lysa said she needs clean water, not boiled mud, not trough water. Clean. Myra did not turn around and asked, Northwell? Torn shook his head and said, weak flow. Myra asked, South Trough? A worker at the door said, black again. No one looked surprised. The system marked the next crisis. System window said, emergency quest. Purify the South Trough beasts without water will panic before midnight. Community reward, beast panic delayed, personal reward, tamer vision level 1. The system panel continued, bonus, low-grade spirit feed ×2, failure, prism stability drops. This time I understood the pattern, the quest helped everyone, the reward helped me, and if I failed, prism paid for it first. The South Trough sat beside the main yard under a leaning roof. The water inside was not water anymore. It was black film, purple streaks, and a smell like dead weeds. A worker tossed a pebble in, the surface hissed. I stepped back. I said, that seems unsafe. Myra gave me the look again. I said, brilliant assessment. Torn pointed his hook at a cracked stone embedded in the trough wall. Torn said, old filter rune. Grafin used to run water through mineral charge. The rune broke when the south pasture curse roots spread. Lysa answered, can magic fix it? Lysa said, real magic can. We do not have a mage, right? Other people could use magic, actual magic. The kind with training, mana, and ranks. I had a touch skill that calmed frightened animals and a system that kept assigning me chores with consequences. Myra asked, can your window read it? I focused on the stone. The system window said, beginner appraisal. Target, South Trough filter status, damaged needs, clean mineral salt, steady contact, stable intent mana required, low user mana, alternative. The system panel continued, substitute stamina through gentle touch. I stared at the last line and said, that sounds bad. Myra folded her arms and asked, for you or for us? I said yes. Torn brought the last fistful of mineral salt from storage. Lysa wrapped my hand in cloth. Darren kept the workers back. Torn said, do not force it. Old marks break when proud people shove power into them. I said, I have 0 power. Torn said, that may help. I pressed the salt into the crack and placed my palm against the rune. Gentle touch activated, not on a beast, on the shivering flow inside the broken stone. My stamina drained like someone had opened a hole in my bones. Blue light crawled through the rune. The black film convulsed. The corrupted water hissed and the trough flashed silver. Purple streaks burned away in curling smoke and the water cleared just enough to reflect the lanterns. The workers exhaled together. The system chimed. The system window said, quest cleared. Purify the South Trough community reward. Water usable for 48 hours personal reward. Tamer vision level 1 bonus reward. Low grade spirit feed ×2. Experience plus 60. A warmth spread behind my eyes. For one moment, every beast marker in the yard appeared. Fear, hunger, pain, curiosity. Near prism, one word glowed brighter than the rest. Trust. Then my knees hit the mud. Myra caught my sleeve. Myra said, that is not standing. Myra said, I improved the water. Myra said, you also almost fell into it. The system added another line. The system window said, level up. Rowan Arden reached level 3 stamina increased new passive. Minor recovery after quest completion, not a combat spell, not a sword aura. Just enough stamina not to collapse every time the ranch needed me. That felt fair. Then the trough smell reached the west pens. The beasts inside began hammering the fence. Heavy impacts rattled and cracked the west pen. Red emotion markers erupted across my vision. Myra looked at the west side of the yard and sighed like a person who had expected this exact disaster. Myra said, reward received, new problem delivered. The system agreed. The system window said, chain reaction detected. Urgent quest, prevent west pen collapse suggested tool, tamer vision. I wiped mud off my palms and forced myself upright. Prism, still weak, climbed off the table and staggered toward the door. Lysa said immediately, no. Prism ignored her. She stood beside me, trembling but determined. My first quest reward had not made me strong. It had made me useful enough to see the next fire before it burned everything down. That would have to do. The office reward opened a new tab before I could celebrate. The system window said, Monster Roster, Grafin Stock Registered, Prism Level 3, Roll, Herd Anchor, Unstable. Gales Level 4, Roll, Road Scout Wounded, Brawn Level 3, Roll, Resource Finder Dormant, Cinder Level 2, Roll, Poison Detector Unstable. Myra leaned over the table. Myra said, tell me that is not another miracle menu. I said, it is a roster. Myra said, that is worse. Rosters become expenses. I tried the biggest button first. The system window said, action denied. Evolution requires stable care conditions. Good, if it had worked, I would not have trusted it. The next button was smaller. The system window said, assign routine, non-combat training available. That was less impressive than evolution. It was also something Grafin could actually use today. I assigned Prism to calm exposure, not combat. Her progress bar moved 1%. I assigned Gale to Watchtower recovery. His wing icon stopped blinking red. I assigned Brawn to safe digging paths. The mineral icon stayed locked, but it pulsed once. I assigned Cinder to trough observation. The poison icon brightened instead of fading. Myra saw my face change and asked, bad menu? I said, useful menu, bad trough. The system chimed softly. The system window said, ranch routine saved, efficiency plus 3%. No one leveled into a monster king, but for the first time, the ranch had assignments instead of panic. The West Pen was a bad joke made of rotten posts and desperate rope. 3 heavy beasts slammed against it from inside. I could not even tell what they were at first. Brown hides, tusks, horns, mud, panic. Tamer vision showed me the part that mattered. They were not angry. They were terrified. Their emotion markers bled red across the fence, feeding each other until fear became impact. Darren braced a support beam with 2 workers. Darren said, if this gate opens, run toward the office. Myra shouted back. Myra said, no one runs through the office. That wall is load-bearing emotionally, not structurally. Even now, she found time to be precise. The system opened tactical guidance. The system window said, urgent quest active. Prevent West Pen collapse resolve without killing ranch stock. The system panel continued, community reward, livestock preserved, personal reward, beginner beast tamer package. Bonus condition, avoid overstraining Prism. Prism took one shaky step forward. A pale ring of light trembled under her paws. I understood what the system wanted. Use her as a calm anchor. Use the fragile beast I had just saved to stabilize bigger ones. Efficient, dangerous, wrong if I forced it. I knelt beside her in the mud. I asked Prism, can you help them? Prism looked at the pen, then at me. Her trust marker pulsed once. No command chain, no magic brand choice. I placed my hand lightly on her back. System window said, cooperative action available. Prism, calm pulse effect, reduces fear in nearby weak beasts cost. Prism stamina warning, repeated use may reopen core fracture. I whispered, only once. Prism stepped forward and lowered her head. A soft circle of silver-blue light spread from her hooves, touching the mud, the fence, and the beasts inside. The pounding slowed, then dropped into one dull impact. The red markers faded to orange. Darren shoved the support beam into place. Workers tied rope around the posts. Torn hooked a loose chain and dragged it tight. Darren shouted, now the gate held. Prism stumbled. I caught her before she fell. For half a second, cold panic cut through the bond. Her crystal mark flickered too fast. The system flashed a warning. The system window said, Prism core strain. Overuse risk detected, recommend immediate rest and feed support. I told the window, I said once. The thought was ridiculous because the window had not forced me. I had chosen it. That mattered. Lysa hurried over with the first pouch of spirit feed. Lysa said, open her mouth. Prism swallowed slowly, then leaned against my knee. The quest cleared. The system window said, quest cleared. Prevent West Pen collapse community reward. West stock preserved personal reward. Beginner beast tamer package basic inventory. 2 slots crude beast salve times 1 bond. Slot access temporary experience plus 70. A tiny inventory grid opened in my vision. 2 slots, 1 salve, no legendary sword, no dragon, still useful. That was the pace I needed. Myra pointed at Prism and asked, can she fight? I said no. Myra asked, can she keep the West Pen calm every night? I said no. Myra said good, then we will not plan around pretending she can. That was probably the most helpful thing anyone had said since I arrived. Torn motioned toward the east barn. Torn said, there is one beast that might help without draining her. The east barn held the Grafin Watcher. A gray hawk with a torn wing, 1 good eye, and the expression of a retired criminal sat in a half-open cage. It snapped at Torn when he reached for the latch. Darren leaned in. Darren said, "That bird hates everyone." The hawk snapped at him too. Darren said, "Fair." Tamer vision marked the hawk in yellow. Pain, pride, suspicion, useful. The system added a side quest. The system window said, "Utility quest. Heal the Watcher. A scouting beast can warn Grayfin before threats arrive." The system panel continued, "Use crude beast salve. Community reward, early warning. Personal reward, temporary bond slot stabilized." So that was the next link. Fix water and the pen panics. Save the pen and the reward gives medicine. Use medicine and Grayfin gains a scout. I pulled the salve from inventory. The hawk watched the glowing slot appear with its one good eye. I asked, "You saw that?" It clicked its beak. Myra immediately asked, "The bird can see your windows?" Myra said, "I think it saw the light." Myra said, "Do not give the bird more secrets than the steward." I moved slowly. The hawk lunged. Prism chirped from the doorway, tiny and offended. The hawk froze. I touched the salve to the torn wing. Tamer vision showed pain dropping from red to yellow, then yellow to pale blue. The hawk beat its wing once, twice. On the third try, it launched onto the rafters and glared down at everyone like we had inconvenienced it by saving its life. The system opened and said, "Temporary bond stabilized. Target, Gale roll, scout current rank, F trust, cautious function unlocked, short range warning calls experience plus 30. I said Gale. The hawk gave one sharp warning cry, name accepted. 2 bonds now, Prism the fragile anchor, Gale the suspicious scout. Still no army, still no combat power. Then Gale vanished through a broken roof hole. Darren cursed. Darren said, "I knew it." A minute later, the hawk returned and dropped a strip of black cloth onto Myra's ledger. Myra unfolded it, her face lost all humor. Myra said, "Collector writers." Torn's hook clicked against the table. Darren reached for his spear. The system opened the next main threat. The system window said, "Threat registered. Illegal reclaimers approaching Brindle Holdings may attempt asset seizure before dawn." The system panel continued, suggested preparation. Reinforce gate, preserve Prism, and use Gale's warning. Myra erased the chalkboard again and said, "New plan." I looked at the exhausted ranch, the half-repaired gate, the fragile cub, and the hawk that still might leave if we annoyed it. My second useful reward had arrived. So had the next enemy. I thought the collectors would come like thieves. They came like men who expected law to bend around their horses. 5 riders appeared on the north road just after sunrise, black cloaks snapping behind them. Their leader wore green trim half hidden under travel mud. Brindle colors, but dirty enough to deny later. Gale screamed from the watchtower. Gale gave 2 sharp warning cries. The system translated the warning before the riders reached the gate. The system window said, "Scout report. 5 mounted reclaimers, 1 contract enforcer, 1 seizure wagon recommended response. Prevent yard breach." Myra shoved the cracked deed into my hands and said, "If they talk, show the paper. If they ride past it, they already chose theft." Darren had 8 workers lined behind the gate with poles, rope, and 1 repaired beam. 8 not soldiers, workers. Prism stood beside my boot, still too small to be intimidating, though the faint light around her made the horses nervous. The lead collector smiled at the ranch gate. The lead collector said, "Grayfin Ranch is in operational default. We are here to inventory distressed assets before they degrade further." Myra answered, "Without a court writ." The collector said, "We are preserving value." Myra said, "You are stealing animals to sell before the owner learns the forms." His smile sharpened. The collector said, "The owner looks new." The system marked the confrontation. The system window said, "Conflict quest started. Defend Greyfen authority. Do not allow hostile party to breach the yard. Community reward. Workers trust increased personal reward. Ranch authority tag." The system panel continued. Bonus reward, skill upgrade shard. Failure, seizure risk rises. The lead collector snapped his fingers. 2 riders moved forward. My hand tightened around the deed. For one wild second, I expected the system to give me a battle skill. It did not. No sword mastery, no mana blast, just a red warning. The system window said, "Threat approaching. Move," so I moved. The first horse lunged through the broken gate gap. Gale dropped from above and tore across its face with a flash of gray wings. In a fast blur, the horse reared. Darren shouted, "Beam!" The workers slammed the repaired beam into place behind the animal's front legs. The rider lost balance, grabbed for the reins, and crashed sideways into the mud. The first rider hit the mud. The second rider swore and drew a short sword. I stepped back too slowly. He swung. The blade cut air where my shoulder had been a heartbeat earlier because Myra grabbed my coat and yanked me behind the gatepost. Myra snapped, "You are not a frontline unit." I said, "I noticed." Prism released 1 tiny calm pulse into the horses. Not a blast, not an attack, just enough to make them hesitate. The collectors hated that more than if she had bitten them. One collector shouted, "She's interfering with bonded property." Myra yelled back, "She is standing in her own yard." The contract enforcer raised a metal seal disc. Red magic crawled across it. Torn's face tightened. Torn said, "Suppression seal. Other people had magic." That fact became very real when the enforcer pushed power into the disc and a red chain of light snapped toward Prism. The system screamed and said, "External magic detected. Suppression seal, hostile user cannot break magic directly. Suggested response, interrupt caster cannot break magic directly." Fine, I did the only thing I could do. I threw the deed case at his face. It was not heroic. It worked. The case hit his nose. His spell hand jerked. The red chain veered into the gatepost and snapped. Darren reached him a second later. The spear shaft struck the enforcer's wrist, sending the seal disc into the mud. The seal disc cracked. The whole yard froze. Then the workers realized the scary magic man could drop things when hit. That changed the fight. 2 workers hooked the wagon wheel with rope. Another kicked mud under the lead horse's hooves. Gale screamed and dove again. Prism stayed close to me, keeping the horses just calm enough not to trample anyone. We won badly, messy, terrified, almost by accident. But we won. The collectors retreated with 1 broken wheel, 1 cracked seal disc, and a promise to return with proper authority. The system chimed. The system window said, "Quest cleared. Defend GREYFEN authority community reward. Workers trust increased personal reward. Ranch authority tag bonus reward. Skill upgrade shard ×1 experience plus 100. Golden mark appeared beside my name. The system window said, "Ranch authority tag. Grayfin workers more likely to follow direct crisis orders. Weak hostile claims are easier to challenge inside ranch grounds." That was the kind of reward I understood. Not power in my fist, power in the community. Then the level up hit. The system window said, "Level up. Rowan Arden reached level 4 stamina, increased focus, increased skill, upgrade available." The workers were watching me differently now. Not like a hero, not yet, more like a strange tool that had somehow kept the gate closed. Myra retrieved my deed case from the mud and handed it back. Myra said, "Your combat strategy is terrible." I said, "It interrupted the spell." Myra said, "I said terrible. I did not say ineffective." Torn picked up the cracked seal disc with his hook and studied the mark on the back. Torn said, "This was Brindle issue." Myra went still and asked, "Not a random reclamation?" Torn said, "No." Darren looked toward the road and said, "Then they'll send more." The system confirmed it with the cruelty of a teacher handing out homework after a fire. The system window said, "New strategic problem. Grayfin survived first seizure attempt." The system panel continued. Brindle Holdings now recognizes active resistance. Next recommended objective, create legal and economic proof of viability. Myra walked to the chalkboard and wrote 5 words, make Grayfin worth defending. Then she looked at me. Myra said, "We need feed, money, witnesses, and proof that our beasts are recovering, in that order." The skill upgrade shard pulsed in my inventory. I opened it. The system window said, "Upgrade options. Gentle touch level 1, wider calming range, gentle touch level 1, lower stamina cost, gentle touch level 1, improved bond recovery support." The first sounded flashy, the second sounded convenient, the third sounded like Prism. I chose recovery support. The system window said, "Skill upgraded. Gentle touch level 0 to gentle touch level 1, improved recovery support during voluntary contact, no combat effect added." No combat effect, good. That meant the pressure had not ended. I knelt beside Prism and placed my hand on her head. Her crystal mark steadied. For 1 second, I saw a phantom shape behind her. Taller, longer antlers, a radiant body outlined in teal-white light, then it vanished. The system window said, "Future route glimpse. Crystal Guardian path remains locked. Required nutrition, trust, territory anchor level 6. Not now, later." That was the promise. Myra saw my expression. Myra said, "Good news." Myra said, "Future good news." Myra said, "My least bankable category." Gale landed on the broken gate and screamed toward the south road. A trade road, a market road, a road full of people who could witness Grayfin alive or sell us out. The next quest opened. The system window said, "Main quest advanced. Prove GREYFEN can survive reach hollow market with 1 stable beast and 1 tradable good." The system panel continued. Community reward, seizure clock delayed, personal reward, market appraisal function. Failure, Brindle legal claim strengthens. The first fight had not made me strong. It had made me responsible. Apparently, that was worse. Hollow market was where desperate people sold things before rich people took them cheaper. Myra said that like it was a weather report. We left Grafin 2 days after the collector fight with 1 patched cart, 3 workers, Darren, Torn, Gale above the road, and Prism tucked under a blanket in the cart. She was stable enough for a short public showing, not stable enough to be impressive on command. The system tracked the journey in the corner of my vision. System window said active quest. Prove Greyfen can survive Objective 1. Reach Hollow Market Objective 2, sell 1 legitimate product Objective 3, show 1 recovering beast without collapse. The system panel continued, personal reward, market appraisal function. We did not have much to sell, 2 jars of Lysis salve, a small sack of purified mineral salt scraped from the repaired filter, 6 bundles of old tack leather. 1 testimony from workers who were still deciding whether I was lucky or cursed. Myra climbed onto the cart bench and said, confidence is what poor people use when inventory is embarrassing. Torn looked back at Prism. Torn said, do not show her unless necessary. Torn said, what counts as necessary? Torn said, if the alternative is losing the deal, losing the cart, or letting someone call her extractable. That list was not comforting. The road to Hollow Market cut through Thornwood where the trees leaned inward and every broken wagon wheel looked like a warning. Gale circled twice and cried once. Darren lifted a hand. Darren said, stop. A rope snapped across the road ahead. If Gale had not warned us, the cart horses would have stepped straight into the trap. The system flashed and said, scout function successful. Ambush avoided, minor reward, experience +10. 3 bandits stepped from the trees with axes and expressions that suggested they were used to hungry carts being easy. Darren raised his spear. Myra sighed. Darren said, we are too poor to rob. The lead bandit pointed at the cart and said, then we'll take the beast. Prism stirred under the blanket. I felt her fear through the bond, not enough to panic. Enough to remind me she was still fragile. I did not send her out. I pointed up and said, Gale. The hawk dropped from the branches and tore the lead bandit's hat clean off his head. Gale gave a sharp warning cry. Darren advanced before they recovered. The fight lasted less than a minute because the bandits had expected merchants, not an angry guard captain with a hawk that hated hats. When they ran, 1 dropped a sealed pouch. Myra opened it with a knife. Inside were 3 small black tags stamped with a brindle horse head. Myra said, road pressure. They pay thieves to make independent trade expensive. The system added a new line to the quest. The system window said, evidence registered. Brindle interference on Thornwood Road optional objective. Present evidence to market witness so even a bandit ambush could become leverage. Hollow Market appeared near sunset. Timber walls, bright flags, smoke from cookfires, merchant stalls, auction bells, and more people than Grafin had fence posts. It should have felt hopeful. Then I saw the beast auction platform. A red-haired nobleman laughed while handlers dragged a thin storm mare in chains. A purple-haired buyer examined a cage of moon pups like he was choosing fruit. A royal blue-haired academy student held a measuring rod against a black crow's chest. Above the crow, my system opened a warning. The system window said market scan, subject scheduled for mana extraction within 24 hours. Reason, low combat rating, unstable organ charge. I stopped walking. Myra stopped too and said, you see it now. I asked, does everyone know? Myra said, everyone who buys, everyone who sells, everyone too poor to stop it pretends not to. First quest echoed in my head, save what the nobles throw away. This was not abstract anymore. A man at the auction desk shouted, condemned lots, no guarantee of temperament, excellent extraction yield. The crowd laughed. Prism pushed her head out from under the blanket and stared at the platform. Her trust marker trembled, not fear this time, anger. A new quest opened. The system window said, urgent market quest. Save 1 condemned lot legally, do not start a market riot. Do not reveal hidden SSS plus potential. The system panel continued, community reward, Grafin gains public mercy witness. Personal reward, market appraisal function. Bonus reward, legal loophole token. Myra followed my gaze to the crow cage. Myra said no. Myra said, you don't know what I was thinking. Myra said, I know your face. It is the face of someone about to spend money we do not have. The crow shivered in its cage, 1 eye green, 1 wing clipped. The auctioneer lifted the lot tag. The auctioneer said, extraction lot, starting bid 4 silver. Myra looked at our cart, then at me, then at the crow. Myra said, I hate being morally cornered. I opened market appraisal, not unlocked yet, but beginner appraisal gave me enough. The system window said, beginner appraisal. Target, condemned crow current rating, failed stock hidden function, toxin detection risk, poison fever recovery cost, low if treated quickly not a fighter, a detector. Exactly the kind of tool Grayfin needed. I raised my hand. I said 4 silver, the auctioneer laughed. I said Grayfin bids, that name moved through the market like spilled oil. The red-haired noble turned, the purple-haired buyer smiled. The royal blue-haired academy student narrowed his eyes. Someone called. I thought Grayfin was dead. Myra lifted her chin. Myra said, rumors are cheaper than feed. The auctioneer shrugged. The auctioneer said, 4 silver going once. A red-haired noble raised one finger. The auctioneer said 10. Myra's fingers dug into the ledger. The noble did not want the crow. He wanted to make sure we could not have it. The system marked him. The system window said hostile bidder detected. Motive, obstruction, suggested response. Use evidence, not money. Evidence? I stepped forward and held up the Brindle Road tags. I said, before this lot sells, I want the market witness to record that Brindle-paid bandits tried to stop Grayfin from reaching Hollow Market. The crowd shifted. The market witness, a woman in a gray coat, appeared from beside the platform. The witness said, show me. Myra looked at me like I had surprised her in a way she did not hate. The red-haired noble's smile thinned. The auctioneer hesitated. The witness inspected the tags and stamped a slate. The witness said, road interference logged. Grayfin receives 1 compensatory witness credit under neutral market rule. Myra whispered, that covers 10 silver. I looked at the auctioneer and said, then 10. The crow sold to Grayfin. The system chimed. The system window said, quest step complete. Condemned lot saved legally community reward. Public witness gained personal reward. Market appraisal function unlocked bonus reward. Legal loophole token experience plus 80. The crow stared at me through the bars. Tamer vision showed pain, fever, and suspicion. A smaller window appeared. The system window said, recovery route available. Requires detox herbs and quiet cage. The system panel continued. Potential role, plague sense crow. Evolution unavailable until trust improves. Good, not instant. Earned later. Then the red-haired noble leaned close enough for me to hear and said, Grayfin should have stayed dead. The system marked his faction in red. The system window said, faction threat updated. Brindle Holdings hostile. Myra took the crow cage and said, we came for market proof. We found enemies, evidence, and another mouth to feed. I said, that seems to be our pattern. Myra said, then learn to monetize it. The quest was not finished. We still needed 1 legitimate sale, 1 public proof, 1 reason for Hollow Market to believe Grayfin was alive. Prism lifted her head from the cart, and the entire market saw the soft teal light gathering around her antlers. Showing Prism in Hollow Market was the worst good idea we had. Myra chose the smallest legal stage, not the auction platform. A neutral merchant stall with gray flags, 2 witnesses, and enough distance from the extraction cages that Prism did not shake. The system opened a reminder. The system window said, active quest. Prove Grayfen can survive Objective 2, sell 1 legitimate product Objective 3, show 1 recovering beast without collapse. The system panel continued. Warning, Prism overexposure may damage trust. Torn brushed Prism's fur until the silver-white patches caught the light. He said, she does not perform. Torn said, I know. Torn said, she does not prove worth by obeying. I said, I know. Torn looked at me with the old severity of someone testing whether I meant it. So when the first buyer asked if she could charge on command, I said no. When the second asked if her crystal mark could be harvested safely, Myra nearly hit him with the ledger. When the third asked what Grayfin was selling, Lysa's salve finally did the work. A caravan healer tested it on a pack lizard with infected harness sores. The swelling eased within minutes, helped by the purified mineral salt mix from Grayfin's trough repair. The market witness wrote it down. Grayfin recovery salve, effective. Myra sold 6 future orders we did not yet have the ingredients to make. Then Prism stepped forward on her own. Not far, just 1 small step into sunlight. Her antler buds glowed teal-white. The crowd quieted. Even the extraction buyers stopped talking. A child near the front whispered, she's pretty. Prism looked at the child and gave the smallest chirp. No command, no trick, just life. The system completed the objective. The system window said, quest cleared. Prove Grayfen can survive community reward. Seizure clock delayed by 7 days personal reward. Market appraisal function stabilized bonus reward. Public proof seal. Experience plus 120. The level up followed. The system window said level up. Rowan Arden reached level 5 focus increased new function. Quest log inventory expanded. 2 slots to 4 slots that was a real upgrade. Not strength exactly. Control. Memory planning. The quest log opened like a glowing book. The system window said quest log. Main, rebuild Graphin active, establish feed cycle active, secure legal supply route hidden, unlock Prism's first true evolution threat, Brindle retaliation. Myra stared at my face. Myra said that one looked important. Myra said I can track quests now. Myra said you needed a magic window to invent a to-do list. Myra said my list gives rewards. Myra said mine prevents starvation. I said both can be useful. She considered that and said, barely. The market proof changed things fast. A feed merchant agreed to sell 2 sacks of oats on credit after the witness seal. Attack repairer offered a cheaper harness if Graphin brought more salve. The gray-coated witness gave Myra a stamped market slate proving Graphin had made a legal recovery sale. For the first time, we had something more valuable than hope. Documentation. Then Gale screamed. Gale gave a sharp warning cry. The crowd turned. At the edge of the market, 2 men in black collector coats were speaking to the red-haired Brindle noble. Beside them, a masked buyer with a violet cane watched Prism without blinking. The system marked the masked man in dark red. The system window said, high-risk observer detected. Unknown collector class interest. Rare beast recovery recommendation. Leave market soon. Myra saw them too. Myra said, we are done. Myra said, but we still need. She repeated, we are done. Myra said proof gained, goods bought, enemies alerted. Staying longer turns profit into bait. That was the system pattern again. Success created exposure. Exposure created threat. Threat required the next tool. As we packed, a boy and girl approached the cart. The boy had messy brown hair, bruised knuckles, and the protective posture of someone too young to be responsible for someone else. The girl beside him carried a feed spoon and stared at Prism with professional worry. The boy said, my name is Nalan, this is Sira. Nalan continued, our mother worked at Hollowmere Ranch before Brindle took it. Myra stiffened and said, Hollowmere stock came through this market last month. Sira nodded once. Sira said most of them died. Then she looked at Prism. Sira said, your beast needs mineral trace mixed warmer. If you keep feeding cold mash, her core line will tighten. Lysa, who had been packing salve, turned immediately. Lysa said, how do you know that? Lysa said, my mother wrote feed journals. Nalan pulled a wrapped notebook from his coat. Myra opened it and stopped breathing for a second. Inside were feed ratios, recovery notes, and names of buyers. Several buyers had Brindle initials. The system opened a new quest. The system window said, community quest. Protect the HOLLOWMERE orphans. Nalan and Sira carry evidence of illegal beast disposal. The system panel continued, community reward, witness chains strengthened, personal reward, feed formula expansion, failure, evidence lost or children captured. Children, evidence, feed knowledge, another solution that was also another problem. Myra closed the notebook. Myra said, you understand coming with us makes you targets. Nalan lifted his chin. Nalan said, we already are. Sira looked at Prism. Sira said, she won't survive long if you keep guessing. That settled it. We took them. Cart left Hollow Market heavier than it arrived. 2 sacks of feed oats. 1 condemned crow, 1 market-proof slate, 2 children with dangerous evidence, and a new enemy watching from the crowd. On the road out, the masked collector raised 2 fingers. Not a wave, a claim. The system added him to the threat list. The system window said, threat log updated. Collector class observer, active likely to pursue recovered beasts and recovery method. Myra did not look back. Myra said, tell me the good news. Myra said, we delayed seizure. Myra said, and the bad? Myra said, we made Grafe invisible. Myra said, that is not bad news. That is the price of becoming real. We almost made it home before the next crisis. Almost. The cart axle cracked 2 miles from Graphin. The cart axle cracked hard. The left wheel dropped into mud. The crow cage slid sideways. Nalan caught Sira before she fell. Prism chirped an alarm and Gale launched from the cart cover with a furious scream. Darren jumped down and inspected the wheel. Darren said, not moving like this. Myra closed her eyes. Darren said, of course. The system did not even pretend to be sympathetic. System window said, urgent logistics quest. Get the market cart home. The supplies, witnesses, and rescued stock cannot be stranded overnight. The system panel continued, community reward, feed supply secured, personal reward, transport appraisal. Optional bonus, discover nearby resource source. The optional bonus bothered me. It meant something was nearby. Torn studied the mud. Torn said, this road sinks near Salt Reed Marsh. Myra's eyes opened. Torn said, no. I asked, what is Salt Reed Marsh? Darren said, black water, mud bores, mineral grass, and poor decisions. Sierra peeked over the cart edge. Sierra said, mineral grass. Prism lifted her head, her core mark brightened. The system confirmed it. The system window said, Prism need detected. Mineral grass can improve core stability. Crystal salt can support recovery feed. Suggested route, salt reed marsh edge. Myra pointed at the broken axle. Myra said, we are not detouring into a marsh with children, a sick beast, and no wheel. Then the mud beside the cart snorted. Everyone froze. A small mud pig crawled out from under a bank of reeds and stared at us with tiny, offended eyes. It was round, filthy, and chewing on something white. Sierra whispered, is that crystal salt? Beginner appraisal opened. The system window said, target, marsh mud pig. Current rank F trait, mineral scent sensitivity temperament, lazy, food-motivated potential role, resource finder. Myra saw my expression. Myra said no. Myra said it can smell salt. Myra said no. Myra said it may help us find enough mineral trace to stabilize Prism. Myra said no. The mud pig swallowed the white chip, then it collapsed onto its side like standing had been a moral burden. Darren stared and said, I hate that I understand why you want it. The system generated the quest before Myra could object further. The system window said, resource quest. Find mineral grass and crystal salt. Use local beast instinct instead of force. The system panel continued. Community reward. Feed crisis reduced. Personal reward. Resource appraisal level 1. Bonus condition. Bond without coercion. Without coercion, so I could not just grab the pig and drag it around. I crouched near it and said, hey. The pig opened one eye. I held out a pinch of crushed oats. It looked at the oats, then at me, then at the oats again like it wanted a better deal. It stood. Myra muttered, we are being judged by ham. The pig followed the oats into the reeds. Not quickly, never quickly. Gale circled above. Darren guarded the cart. Torn walked behind me with his hook ready. Nolan stayed near Sierra, who watched the pig with obvious interest. After 20 minutes of mud, reeds, and Myra listing all the ways this could ruin us, the pig stopped at a black patch of water. Then it slammed its snout into the mud. Mud burst around Braun's snout. White crystal fragments surfaced. Mineral salt. Nearby, pale green grass grew in thin glowing strands. Prism pressed against my leg, trembling with need. The system opened and said, resource node located. Crystal salt pocket mineral grass patch contamination. Moderate resource appraisal unavailable until quest completion. Then the reeds moved. A larger shape emerged from the marsh. Then another. Mud boars, real ones, bigger than the cart, tusks like curved knives. The small pig squealed and hid behind me, which was insulting because I was absolutely not the strongest thing present. Darren lowered his spear. Darren said, back away slowly. One mud boar charged. The system flashed red. The system window said, warning, user cannot survive direct hit. Useful, terrifying. I moved. The boar hit the mud where I had been and skidded. Gale dove at its eye. Prism released a tiny calm pulse, but this time it barely slowed the larger beast. The small pig shook beside me. Tamer vision showed its emotion. Fear, hunger, recognition. The mud boars were not attacking because we found salt. They were attacking because the water behind them was poisoned. A hidden black slick spread through the reeds. The system updated. The system window said, quest condition revealed. Mud boars are defending contaminated young. Solution path, expose safe salt pocket, do not kill adults. Again, not a monster fight, a problem. I shoved the oat pouch toward the small pig and said, you found the salt once. Find the clean part. It squealed like I had made an unreasonable request. Then it ran, not away, sideways, straight to a raised mud shelf near the largest reeds. The system pulsed. The system window said, bond condition met. F-rank beast chooses useful action during territory crisis. Proceed with minor evolution, not legendary, not broken, useful. I accepted. The pig glowed bronze. Bronze light pulsed around him. Its small body grew heavier, plated along the shoulders with iron-brown ridges. Its snout hardened into a bronze wedge. It still looked lazy, but now it looked like laziness with armor. The system window said, evolution complete. Brawn, or sniffing iron boar rank, E-roll, resource finder combat rating, low function, detects salt ore and tainted ground personal reward. Resource appraisal level 1. Brawn snorted once, then slammed his snout into the clean shelf. A bright mineral vein lit beneath the mud. The adult boars stopped charging. Torn understood first. Torn said they needed a clean feeding shelf. Sierra pointed to the poisoned slick. Sierra said, and the water was pushing them out. We dug fast, not heroically. Messily, Darren held the boars back. Gale warned when they shifted. Prism stayed close, calming Braun whenever he got scared. Braun found 3 salt pockets and a narrow strip of usable mineral grass before sunset. The quest cleared when the adult boars finally lowered their tusks. The system window said, resource quest cleared. Community reward, 7 days of recovery feed materials secured personal reward, resource appraisal level 1. The system panel continued, bonus reward, bond capacity increased to 2 stable slots, experience plus 120. A level up followed, the system window said, level up. Rowan Arden reached level 6 bond capacity increased new map marker, salt read resource node. 2 stable slots, Prism and Gale. Brawn was marked as provisional until trust improved. Balanced earned. When we returned to the cart, Brawn helped find the least rotten patch of road to brace the wheel. Myra stared at him. Myra said, he is useful. Brawn flopped into the mud. Myra added, emotionally less so. The repaired cart reached Grayfin after dark with salt, grass, proof, and 1 new resource beast asleep under the axle. At the gate, workers rushed out. For the first time since I arrived, they looked relieved before they looked afraid. Then Gale screamed from the watchtower, not warning this time. Alarm! A green brindle tag had been nailed to the gate while we were gone. Under it hung a strip of black cloth. Torn's face went hard. He said, not collectors. Myra took the cloth and smelled it. Myra said, beast handlers. The system opened the next threat. The system window said, enemy method updated. Brindle has moved from legal pressure to beast sabotage. Recommended next objective, secure feed and pens before night attack. We had found the resource we needed, which meant someone else had decided it was time to poison the ranch again. The first sabotage alarm came from Cinder. That was what Sierra called the condemned crow before anyone asked permission. The crow had spent the night in a quiet cage near Lysa's workbench, glaring at everyone and refusing food until Sierra warmed the mash exactly. Right at dawn, it suddenly shrieked so hard that Torn dropped a bucket. Cinder shrieked. Green-black sparks burst around its one good eye. A system panel opened over the feed shed. The system window said, threat detected. Foreign toxin in recovery feed affected target if consumed. Prism urgent quest, isolate poison supply. Lysa went pale. Myra moved faster than I had ever seen her move. Lysa said, no one touches the feed sacks. Workers froze. Darren sealed the shed door. I used tamer vision and resource appraisal together. The world narrowed into color, safe grain in dull yellow, mineral grass in pale green, and 1 sack marked by thin black veins. Brawn pushed past my legs, sniffed once, and backed away with an offended squeal. I said, good pig. Myra looked at me. Myra said, do not encourage him. He already has confidence. The system marked the sack. System window said, poison feed located. Source, external contamination delivery method, unknown suggested response. Preserve evidence. We solved the first problem. The second arrived immediately. A worker shouted from the west pens, the hounds are coughing. Lysa cursed and ran. The poison had not just been in the feed. Someone had dusted the pen straw. The ranch erupted. Workers moved animals into the yard. Darren formed a line at the gate. Torn checked the fence posts for cut marks. Gale circled above, screaming short warnings. Prism pressed close to the frightened beasts, using the smallest calm pulses she could manage. I reached for Cinder's cage. The crow snapped at me, then looked toward the coughing hounds. Its emotion marker flickered. Suspicion, fear, decision. The system opened. The system window said, evolution condition available. Target, Cinder condition, detects poison threatening sheltering herd trust. Insufficient for full bond option. Temporary cooperative awakening cost. User stamina plus detox herbs not another instant permanent power. Temporary conditional fair. I looked at Sierra. I said, can you mix detox herbs? She already had the spoon in her hand. I said, if Lysa gives me fever root. Lysa threw a pouch without looking. I touched Cinder's cage and said, help us find it all and you don't owe me anything. The crow stared, then lowered its head. I accepted. Green-black light flared around its wings. Cinder gave a piercing cry. The system window said, temporary awakening. Cinder, plague sense crow rank, E-duration, 1 hour function, marks poison, fever traces, contaminated objects bond status. Undecided. Cinder launched from the cage and painted the ranch in warning sparks. 3 feed sacks, 2 straw piles, 1 water bucket, a strip of cloth under the fence. Workers followed the sparks and removed each poisoned item. The quest did not clear, because Gale screamed again. At the north gate, a horned wolf with a black chain around its neck slammed into the fence. Then another, then 4 more, not wild wolves, driven wolves. Their chain collars glowed with red brindle seals. Darren raised his spear and said, they sent beasts. Myra's face went cold. Myra said, of course they did. Myra continued, they failed to seize ours, so they'll make ours look dangerous. The system opened a red emergency box. The system window said, emergency defense quest. Protect GREYFEN without killing forced BEASTS enemy goal. Cause public proof of ranch danger community reward. Preserve legal defense personal reward. The system panel continued. Ranch level 2, bonus, skill branch unlocked if forced collars are disabled. That was worse than a fight. If we killed the wolves, Brindle could call Grafen violent. If we let them through, they would hurt workers and beasts. If we overused Prism, she could collapse. I was level 6 and still useless in a direct fight, which meant I had to use the ranch. I shouted, Gale mark collars. The hawk dove through the yard, silver-gray wings flashing. Blue markers appeared over the red chains. I shouted, Brawn, weak ground. Brawn squealed, charged 3 steps, and slammed his snout into the mud near the fence. A soft patch lit in bronze. I shouted, Darren left side, don't spear them, drop them. Darren adjusted instantly. Darren said, ropes. Workers threw loops over 2 wolves as they stumbled into the softened mud. Prism stepped forward. I placed a hand on her back. I told Prism only fear, not their bodies. She released 1 comm ring. The wolves slowed just enough for Torn to hook the first collar and twist. The red seal sparked. Cinder screamed from above and marked the toxin burned into the collar leather. Lysa threw a wet cloth over it. The seal broke. The forced collar cracked. The first wolf collapsed, not dead, just free of the forced command. The system flashed and said, forced collar disabled, 1/5. Now we had the answer, not strength. Teamwork built from every reward. Gale found targets. Brawn found terrain. Cinder marked poison seals. Prism lowered panic. Darren and the workers handled the physical fight. Myra kept shouting positions like the yard was a ledger with legs. We broke the second collar, then the third. The fourth wolf nearly reached Nalan. Sierra dragged him backward by the sleeve and yelled at him for being brave in the wrong direction. The fifth wolf leapt for Prism. I moved before I thought. I stepped between them. Stupid, absolutely stupid. The wolf hit me shoulder first and sent me into the mud. Pain flashed white. The system screamed. The system window said, impact damage. User physical resistance low, recommend defensive training. No kidding, Prism's calm pulse surged, not because I commanded it, because she chose it. The wolf froze above me, trembling under 2 instincts, forced violence and sudden peace. Torn broke the last collar, something cracked hard. The red seals died. The yard went silent except for rain dripping off broken roofs. The wolves lay panting in the mud, alive, free. The quest cleared, the system window said, emergency defense quest cleared. Community reward, Grafen legal defense preserved personal reward. Ranch level 2 bonus reward. Skill branch unlocked experience plus 180. The whole ranch lit blue, not just my window, the gate posts, the trough rune. The pens, the office chalkboard. For 1 second, even the workers saw a faint glow across Grafen's broken bones. Then the system window opened for me alone. The system window said, Grafen ranch level up. Ranch level 1 to 2 unlocked. Basic pen ward unlocked. Beast recovery field. Week unlocked. Community task board personal level up. Rowan Arden reached level 7. Another window appeared and said, skill branch available. Gentle touch level 1 may branch into. 1 calming field. Wider emotional support 2. Recovery hand. Stronger healing support 3. Bond breaker weakens low-grade forced control marks. I did not choose immediately. That choice mattered too much. Myra approached, covered in mud, hair loose, ledger clutched like a weapon. Myra said, tell me the blue window said something useful. I said, it did. Myra asked, does it solve the next problem? I looked at the broken collars laid in a row. Each one carried a brindle mark, but under the red seal was a second symbol. A black crown inside antlers. Torn saw it and went still. Torn said, that is older than Brindle. The system marked the symbol. The system window said, hidden faction trace detected. Collar ring method. Brindle is not acting alone. There it was, the answer hiding under the whole first week. Grafen was not being crushed by one greedy noble family. Someone bigger had been using noble cruelty as cover. I looked across the yard. Prism leaned against Lysa, exhausted but alive. Gale perched on the gate. Bronze slept in the mud like the battle had been inconvenient. Cinder watched from the roof, still undecided but still there. Workers stood around us with ropes, buckets, and shaking hands. The ranch had not become safe. It had become real enough for enemies to reveal themselves. Myra wrote on the chalkboard before the rain washed the mud from her boots. Find who profits from broken beasts. The system accepted that as the next quest. The system window said, main quest advanced. Expose the Beast Crown Network. Grafen level 2 achieved. System panel continued. Community survived first sabotage chain. Next phase, investigation, alliances, and controlled evolution. Warning, enemies will escalate. I was still not strong enough to win a duel. Still not a mage. Still not a real lord by noble standards, but I had levels now, a ranch that could grow. A community that had seen the system's results, even if they could not see the system itself. And for the first time since waking up in that disposal hall, I understood the shape of the journey. Every quest saved someone. Every reward made me more capable. Every solution dragged a larger enemy into the light. That was how Grayfin would survive. Not because I started powerful, because the system kept turning responsibility into strength. The rain started before anyone celebrated. Myra dragged the callers into the office and locked the door. Other people in this world had spells, contracts, seals, and trained beasts. I had quests, experience, hidden functions, and a hand that hurt every time I used it. That was enough to point us at the real enemy. By morning, the black crown symbol had a name in Myra's ledger, Collar Ring. That was how I knew the situation was serious. She placed the 5 broken collars on the office table, each one cleaned, tagged, and arranged beside the brindle route map. Under every green brindle seal was the same black symbol, a crown trapped inside antlers. Torn would not touch the marks. Cinder watched them from the window beam, feathers lifted. Gale watched the road. Braun slept outside the office door with his snout in a bucket because Sierra had told him not to eat the evidence. Prism lay near my chair, still recovering from the defense quest. I opened the branch window again. The system window said, Skill branch available. Gentle touch level 1 may branch into 1. Calming field 2, recovery hand 3. Bond breaker warning, first branch affects future growth path. Calming field would help the whole ranch. Recovery hand would help Prism. Bond breaker was the only option that answered the callers. Myra read my face before I said anything. I said, you already chose. I said, I hate that. I said, then stop being predictable. I selected Bond Breaker. The system flashed hard enough that Prism lifted her head. The system window said, Skill branch selected. Gentle touch level 1 to gentle touch. Bond breaker path new function. Weaken low-grade force control marks through touch limit. Requires direct contact. The system panel continued. Cost, stamina drain / pain feedback personal level. Stable at 7 pain crawled under my right palm like cold wire. Not power. A tool. That was the system's pattern now. Myra tapped the map and said, if the callers came through Brindle, the records should pass through Hollowmere Ranch first. I asked, Hollowmere. Torn looked toward the rain outside and said, Old hound breeder. Sold moonhounds before Grayfin collapsed. Torn continued, went quiet 3 months ago. I asked, quiet how? Torn said, no market stock, no letters, no barking when travelers passed. That made everyone silent. The system opened a new quest before anyone could pretend this was optional. The system window said, investigation quest. Follow the collar chain, find where Brindle's force control collars entered the region. The system panel continued. Community reward, identify next sabotage route, personal reward, trace appraisal level 1 bonus, rescue surviving bonded stock. Myra closed the ledger and said, we go small. Darren objected immediately and said, no. Myra corrected herself and said, we go quiet. Rowan, Torn, Gale, Cinder, and me. Darren stays. Myra continued, if Grayfin is attacked while we chase ghosts, the ranch dies. Darren hated it, which meant he knew she was right. Hollowmere Ranch sat in a narrow valley east of Thornwood, half hidden behind leaning birches and rusted fence wire. Its gate hung open. No guards, no smoke, no dogs. Gale refused to land. Cinder clicked its beak once. The yard looked abandoned, but tamer vision painted fear into the ground. Old fear, dragged fear, fear that had been pressed into collars and straw. We found the first empty chain in the hound barn, then the second, then a whole wall of them. Every chain hook had a name tag under it. Torn read the first 3 and stopped. Myra read the rest with a flat voice. Torn said, 27 moonhounds, all removed. I touched one collar. Bond breaker answered through my palm. The pain was immediate. The memory behind it was worse. A gray hound pulled against a glowing red chain. A handler in brindle green shouted for the beast to bite. A masked buyer lifted a violet cane. A child cried from somewhere under a table. The vision snapped away. I nearly fell. Myra caught my sleeve. Myra said, Rowan. I said they were not sold as livestock. I said they were tested. The system recorded the trace. The system window said, trace appraisal LV1, partial activation. Force control residue confirmed, secondary buyer present, symbol match. Collar ring method evidence quality. Strong. A sound came from under the floor, not a bark, a whimper. Torn found the trapdoor behind the feed bins. Under it, 3 moonhound pups were hiding in a cold storage pit. One was barely breathing, one snapped weakly at the light. The smallest had a black chain mark burned halfway around its neck. Myra swore under her breath. The system opened another window. The system window said, bonus objective triggered. Rescue surviving bonded stock 3 moon hound pups remain alive. The system panel continued. Community reward, future night watch line preserved personal reward, bond slot +1 failure, collar ring trace loss. I reached for the marked pup. Torn stopped me. Torn said bond breaker hurts you through the mark. Torn said I know. Torn said no, you know the sentence, not the price. The pup was shaking too hard to stand. I put my hand on the burned mark, the world stabbed white, the black mark cracked, the black line cracked, the pup screamed, so did I. Cinder burst into green-black sparks and marked the fever trace inside the wound. Myra shoved detox herbs into Torn's hand. Gale screamed at the rafters like something above us might still be listening. The mark broke, the pup collapsed into my lap. Alive, the quest cleared. The system window said bonus objective cleared. 3 moon hound pups rescued personal reward, bond slot +1 trace appraisal stabilized experience +160. A second panel followed. The system window said level up. Rowan Arden reached level 8 stamina increased slightly pain resistance increased slightly inventory expanded 4 to 5 slots. Slightly, the system was generous in the most irritating way possible. Then the oldest hound in Hollowmere stepped out from the shadows. He was gray, scarred, and thin enough that his ribs showed, but his eyes were bright silver. A broken collar hung from his neck. He had not hidden under the floor because he was weak. He had stayed above it to guard the pups. Torn whispered Moonfang line. The old hound looked at the pups, then at me. The system opened, but this time it did not demand touch. The system window said potential ally detected. Vale Moonfang herd hound current condition. Wounded guardian trust condition, protect pups without ownership claim bond status, possible later. I did not reach for him. I stepped back and pointed to the open gate. I said, you can leave if you want. Vale stared at me for a long time, then he picked up the smallest pup by the scruff and walked toward our cart. Myra watched him pass. Myra said, so that is the rule now? Myra asked, what rule? I said, we rescue problems and they climb into the cart. The system updated the main quest. The next morning did not begin with peace. It began with a formal complaint. Selene Brindle arrived with riders, a clerk, and a cold smile. The notice accused Grayfin of illegal beast mutation. It accused us of hiding awakened stock. It accused us of interfering with noble recovery rights. Darren read the seal and swore under his breath. Myra took the paper and did not blink once. She said, so she is moving faster now. Selene looked at Prism the way merchants look at stolen gold. The radiant stag stood behind her, its collar still glowed, its eyes still looked tired. The academy clerk cleared his throat. The clerk said, by noble complaint, Grayfin must submit to inspection. I asked, and if we pass? I said, seizure is delayed. Myra repeated, delayed. I said, generous. Selene did not hide her amusement. Selene said, if you fail, the ranch, the cub, and all condemned stock return to proper hands. Proper hands meant chains. The system opened a new objective, urgent quest, pass inspection. Survive the public field trial. Community reward, Grayfin keeps shelter status. The system panel continued, personal reward, legal appraisal unlocked. The clerk explained the final condition. Inspection alone would not settle a hidden rank dispute. We also had to prove Prism's growth in public. A field trial would be held before witnesses. 1 controlled demonstration, 1 performance test, 1 judgment on whether Grayfin was raising beasts or breaking them. That was what Selene wanted, a stage, a crowd, a chance to call us frauds. Good, I wanted a stage too. If condemned stock had to survive in this world, they needed 1 clean public win, not an ancient lecture, not secret paperwork alone, a visible answer. Prism bumped my wrist. The little level window glowed brighter than before. Gale screamed from the fence post. Braun rammed a feed barrel and demanded breakfast. Hollow bounced in the trough like a blue bubble with opinions. Our team was still weak, but they were ours. No, that was wrong, we were theirs too. Myra closed the complaint and handed it back. She said, then we keep this simple. Myra said we show the court the truth. Darren asked, and if Selene cheats? Myra looked at the radiant stag's collar and said, then we make sure everyone sees that too. The system added 1 final note. Public proof changes everything. So the ranch stopped preparing for survival and started preparing for a verdict. Dalen stepped forward and said, Inspector Baron Cedric requested provisional removal of unstable stock. Seraphine said, denied until trial. Dalen asked, trial? Seraphine looked at me and said, public beast trial. Brindle Field. 7 days. If Grayfin proves its awakened stock is stable, bonded without coercion, and economically useful, the complaint weakens. Seraphine continued, if 1 beast loses control, seizure becomes legal. The system opened immediately. The system window said, main quest advanced. Survive the beast trial, prepare public proof for awakened stock. The system panel continued. Community reward, legal survival, personal reward, trial strategy, board failure, Grafin stock seizure. Then a second window appeared. The system window said, choice available. Spend 1 skill focus to improve. 1. Race appraisal. 2. Legal appraisal. 3. Bond breaker stability. I had 1 skill focus from reaching level 8. The trial would be a legal fight, but the collars were still the enemy's real weapon. I chose bond breaker stability. The system window said, bond breaker path improved. Pain feedback reduced by 10%, forced mark resistance improved slightly. Note, direct contact still required. Again, not flashy enough to win alone, useful enough to survive the next problem. Seraphine turned to leave, then stopped by the gate. Seraphine said, Lord Arden, I still hated how strange that sounded. Seraphine said, if your story is true, someone is using Brindle's greed to hide old beast control work. Do not mistake the visible enemy for the dangerous one. Torn's face darkened. Myra waited until the Academy writers left before speaking. Torn said, 7 days. Darren turned toward the yard. Torn said, we train. Torn looked toward the old south pasture. Torn said, we also stop pretending Grafin's past is buried. The system accepted both as objectives. The system window said, trial preparation phase started. Objective 1, stabilize public roster. Objective 2, protect witnesses. Objective 3, identify hidden collar ring method. Objective 4, uncover Grafin Foundation records. So the next quest was not 1 problem. It was 4. That meant the reward would be better, or the disaster would be. Myra divided the 7 days like a war budget. Day 1, evidence. Day 2, beast stability. Day 3, public demonstrations. Day 4, worker training. Day 5, sabotage watch. Day 6, rest, which Myra wrote only after Lysa threatened her with a medicine spoon. Day 7, Brindle Field. The system turned the whole board into glowing task windows. The system window said, trial strategy board unlocked. Tasks may be assigned to community members. Rowan receives experience only when assigned tasks resolve a quest objective. New function, community task sync. That was the strongest reward yet. Not because it made me powerful, because it made the ranch organized. Myra saw me staring at the chalkboard. Myra said, your window is touching my board. Myra said, it says I can assign tasks. Myra said, my board already does that. Myra said, mine gives experience. Myra said, then mine is morally superior. We used both. Darren trained the workers on crowd control formations, not killing blows. Gale ran routes between the gate, roof, and North Ridge. Braun practiced finding hidden metal and tainted soil under marked squares. Cinder learned to mark poison without screaming at everything that smelled suspicious. Prism practiced standing in public. That was harder than it sounded. She did not like crowds. She did not like rods. She did not like anyone asking whether her crystal mark could be sampled. Every time a worker pretended to be an academy inspector, her trust marker flickered. I used gentle touch carefully, not to force calm, to remind her I was still there. The system tracked it. The system window said bond stability training. Prism public exposure tolerance, 18% to 26% warning. Progress fragile. Then Vale surprised everyone. The old moon hound walked into the training yard with the pups behind him. He placed himself between them and a wooden target painted with a red collar mark. Torn went still. Torn said he wants to demonstrate. Vale's silver collar aura flickered. The system opened and said, ally demonstration available. Vale Moonfang herd hound function. Calm frightened young stock condition. Pups remain protected bond. Ally not owned. Good. The trial needed proof that Grafin did not use force. Vale was exactly that proof. The third day went wrong at lunch, because the best time for sabotage was always when people thought they were finally organized. Gale screamed from the roof. Cinder screamed from the feed shed. Braun squealed from the south fence. 3 alerts hit at once. The system window said, sabotage event detected. Poison trace in trial feed metal spike under demonstration ring unknown charm near Prism's resting pen. Myra stared at the 3 windows I described. Myra said, I hate efficient enemies. The charm near Prism's pen was not brindle green. It was bone white tied with black thread and pressed into the fence post like a leech. Torn's face drained of color. Torn said, old recall charm. Torn said, what does it recall? He did not answer fast enough. Prism screamed. The charm flared. For one breath, her teal-white aura twisted into antler-shaped shadows. The system screamed louder. The system window said, sovereign trace interference. Target, Prism Effect, Forced Origin Agitation Countermeasure. Stabilize bond/remove charm, do not overpulse, so Grafen's hidden past had reached into the present. I touched the charm, bond breaker burned, Prism thrashed. The pain hit my palm, wrist, elbow, shoulder, then heart. I almost let go, then Veil stepped beside Prism and released a silver calm ring over the pups and her together. Cinder marked the charm's toxic knot. Torn cut the black thread with his hook. The charm cracked, the charm snapped. Prism collapsed, breathing hard. The system cleared the alert. The system window said, Sovereign Trace Interference removed. Team response successful, experience plus 90 bond breaker stability improved through use. I sat in the mud, hands shaking. Myra crouched in front of me. Myra said, can you continue? Myra said no. Myra said good, honest answer. Myra stood and shouted across the yard, training stops for 1 hour. Lysa gets Rowan. Torn gets that charm. Darren checks every post. Anyone pretending exhaustion is bravery loses dinner. That was why Grafen survived, not because I was strong, because the people around me were becoming a system too. On the 6th night, the system gave us the final trial roster. The system window said, trial roster locked. Prism level 3, recovery proof Gale level 4, scouting proof Brawn level 3, resource proof Cinder level 2, poison detection proof Veil level 34, voluntary herd protection proof warning, unauthorized roster changes. Increase instability no army, no overpowered monster wave, 5 proof beats, each one earned. The night before the trial, Torn finally took me to the old south pasture. Moonlight rested on a buried stone ring under the grass. At its center was a sealed door marked with an antler crown. He said, this was here before the ranch. The system recognized it. The system window said, Foundation record detected. Access locked, trial outcome may unlock authority, so even the trial was only a door. The real story was under the ranch. Brindle Field looked like a festival built around a trap. Noble canopies ringed the arena. Merchant stands filled the far side. Academy riders guarded the center lane. Red-haired, purple-haired, and royal blue-haired nobles watched from padded seats, pretending this was law instead of entertainment. Baron Cedric Brindle sat under a green canopy with gold tassels. He looked exactly like I expected, thin, polished, and pleased with other people's suffering. Dalen stood beside him. A masked collector with a violet cane sat 2 seats back. The system marked him red this time. The system window said, high-risk observer confirmed. Caller ring associate suspected, do not engage directly without evidence. Seraphine opened the trial. Seraphine announced, Grafen Ranch must prove its awakened stock is stable, voluntary, useful, and not produced through illegal mutation. Cedric smiled and asked, and if they cannot? Seraphine answered, then the law already says what happens. The first demonstration was Gale. Darren released 3 flags behind moving screens. Gale marked all 3 with wind rings, then marked the hidden Brindle clerk crouching under the 3rd platform. The crowd laughed before they realized they had laughed at Brindle. The system chimed and said, trial proof 1 complete. Scouting function accepted, experience plus 30. Braun went next. Myra buried 5 objects under the arena soil. Iron nail, clean salt, rotten feed, poison pellet, and 1 Brindle tag. Braun found all 5, then he found a 6th object nobody had placed. A bone-white charm under the demonstration circle, the same kind used on Prism. Seraphine's eyes sharpened. Cedric stopped smiling. Cinder launched from Torn's shoulder and painted the charm in green-black sparks. The system window said, trial-proof chain expanded. Sabotage evidence detected during public trial evidence visibility. High. That changed the whole field because the crowd saw it, the nobles saw it, the merchants saw it. No one could pretend the charm had appeared politely. Cedric stood. Cedric said, a trick. Myra lifted the market witness slate. The witness said, then you will enjoy explaining why your clerk was under the platform. Dalen reached for his sword. Seraphine's inspection rod lit blue. Seraphine said, draw that and I add armed interference. He stopped. Vale's demonstration came next. They released 6 frightened goats into the arena, including one with an old training brand. Vale did not bark, did not chase. He walked a slow crescent around them until the goats clustered behind him. Sierra watched from the gate, both hands white around her feed spoon. The crowd quieted. A noble woman whispered, that hound is not controlled. Good, that was the point. Prism was last. I hated that. She stepped into the arena with Lysa beside her and me at her shoulder. Her aura was small, controlled, and alive. Seraphine placed a weighted gate beam over a clay medicine jar. Seraphine said, protect without breaking. Prism touched the beam with the flat of her antler buds. Her legs shook. The beam stopped one hand above the jar. The arena went silent. Then the masked collector lifted his violet cane. The bone-white charm under the circle exploded. Prism screamed. So did every beast in the arena. A chained horned bear burst from a side gate that had not been on the trial roster. It had red brindle seals on its collar, and black antler crown marks burned under them. The crowd panicked. The chained horned bear roared. The system window filled my vision. The system window said, "Emergency trial quest. Prevent public massacre objective. Break forced control without killing the bear community reward. Legal vindication personal reward. Bond breaker level 2. The system panel continued. Failure, seizure/death/collar ring evidence lost without killing. Of course, Darren was too far. Seraphine was pulling civilians back. Prism was shaking from the recall pulse. That left me. Weak, stupid, and close enough. I ran. The bear swung. I ducked too late. Its chain paw clipped my side and threw me across the sand. Pain hit like a hammer. The system window said, "Impact damage. Ribs bruised. User remains combat inefficient." I gasped, helpful. The bear turned toward a fallen child. Prism saw it. Her aura flared. I grabbed her fur before she burned herself out. I said, "No, hold the fear." She lowered the panic instead of charging. That gave me 3 seconds. Gale cut across the bear's eyes. Cinder marked the collar knot. On slammed the ground and raised a ridge of sand under the bear's front legs. Vale gathered the goats and the fallen child behind him. Teamwork again. I threw myself at the collar and clamped my right hand onto the black mark. Bond breaker activated. Pain ate the world. The mark fought back, not like brindle seals. Older, hungrier. The system forced one message through the noise. The system window said, "Bond breaker limit exceeded. Use public proof seal as stabilizer. Cost, seal consumed." I said yes. The market proof seal shattered into blue light around my hand. The black crown mark cracked. The bear collapsed mid-roar. Alive, free. The field went silent. Then every academy rod pointed toward the exposed collar. Seraphine raised her voice and said, "Public trial record. Grafin prevented a forced control massacre under sabotage." Seraphine continued, "Brindle's complaint is suspended pending investigation." The system cleared. The system window said, "Emergency trial quest cleared. Community reward, seizure blocked personal reward, bond breaker level 2 level up, Rowan Arden reached level 9 new function." Forced mark map warning, collar ring network alerted Cedric left before the crowd could decide whether to boo him. The masked collector did not. He looked directly at me, then tapped the violet cane twice. The system translated the pulse. The system window said, "Enemy recognition gained. Collar ring has identified the system's interference pattern." My stomach went cold. Until then, they had wanted Grafin's beasts. Now they wanted to know why their collars kept breaking. Winning the trial did not make Grafin safe. It made Grafin impossible to ignore. Merchants sent letters. Workers asked questions. Brindle sent no apology. Seraphine sent a form. Myra said, "They cannot steal us this week." The system translated it differently. The system window said, "Main quest advanced. Uncover Greyfen Foundation record. The collar ring method is older than Brindle. Investigate the sealed structure under Grafin." The system panel continued. Community reward. Identify source of forced recall personal reward. Seal appraisal function. Torn looked 10 years older when the panel appeared and I told him what it said. Myra folded her arms. I said, "You know what is under the pasture." Torn did not deny it. He led us there after sunset. Me, Myra, Lysa, Seraphine, Darren, and Prism. Vale stayed behind with the pups. Gale watched the ridge. Cinder refused to leave Torn's shoulder. Braun followed until the mud got too shallow, then complained from the fence. The sealed door in the south pasture had the same antler crown shape as the collar ring mark, but the lines were reversed. Torn touched the stone with his hook. Torn said Grafin was never founded as a ranch. It was built as a guardhouse. The door answered him with a deep vibration. The sealed door answered with a deep vibration. The system opened. The system window said, "Seal appraisal function available. Ancient structure recognized status. Degraded sanctuary integrity. 18% warning. Below 15% enables memory leakage." Seraphine went very still. Seraphine said, 18% of what? Torn looked at the door instead of us. Seraphine said, "Of the thing buried under it." The first chamber was a breeding hall, not the warm kind. Rows of old stalls lined the walls. Nameplates hung above them. Crystal Horn, Moonfang, Windeye, Orsent, Thorneater, Plaguesense, Rootshield, Thunderhoot. Every bloodline we had awakened or rescued. All of them had been here before, Myra whispered. Grafin did not discover them. Torn said, "No." Torn said, Grafin kept records after old handlers pushed them too far. At the center of the hall sat a broken nest of crystal and root. Inside it was a silver egg. Small, hairline cracked, breathing with light. Prism stepped forward and lowered her head until her nose nearly touched it. The system slammed open. The system window said, Sovereign error detected. Status, dormant rank, unknown current threat, recall pressure warning, forced awakening may collapse seal. Nobody moved, then something spoke from under the floor, not in words, in pressure. Return. Prism shook so hard her knees bent, the egg pulsed. The sealed hall answered. System window said, Sanctuary integrity, 16%. Myra's voice went thin. Myra said, Rowan. I said, I see it. Seraphine drew her academy sword and asked, What is speaking? Torn finally said the name, the founder guardian stag. The chamber trembled. A memory spilled through the walls, noble handlers dragging young beasts into circles, forcing bloodline awakenings, selling survivors to kings and burning failures before inspection. Old Grayfin had not been innocent. It had become a machine that made rare beasts by breaking weak ones. Then the thing below woke enough to punish them. The system opened the quest. The system window said, Foundation quest. Stabilize the Sovereign Seal objective, protect the dormant heir objective, recover full Guardian Charter objective, prevent forced awakening. The system panel continued. Community reward, Grayfin survives root breach personal reward, Guardian candidate status. I stared at the words. Guardian not owner, that mattered. Then a violet light appeared on the far wall. Director Morkant stepped out of a projected mask. Black coat, crown-shaped mask, violet cane not fully present, but close enough that the heir hated him. Morkant said, so the failed tamer found the egg. Darren moved in front of Myra. Seraphine raised her sword. Morkant ignored both of them and looked at me. Seraphine said, the collar ring thanks you. Grayfin hid what we needed for 2 generations. The egg pulsed again. Sanctuary integrity dropped. The system window said, Sanctuary integrity, 14%. Memory leakage threshold crossed. Roots cracked through the floor. Prism tried to flare. I stopped her and said, not yet. For once, the system did not give me a power solution. It gave me an evacuation route. The system window said, emergency objective. Leave the hall with the heir undisturbed. Return with full covenant requirements. Failure, seal collapse accelerates, so we ran. Not heroic. Not clean, we ran because the right answer was to survive long enough to understand the problem. Morkant's projection laughed behind us. At the pasture exit, the old ranch bell rang by itself. Every beast in Grayfin answered. The system marked the next phase. The system window said, Guardian candidate status pending. Requirements unknown, find the full oath before collar ring returns. The war had changed. We were no longer saving a ranch from nobles. We were guarding a buried wound from people who wanted to open it. Collar ring attacked before dawn, not with letters, not with complaints. With roots, collars, and beasts wearing someone else's will. Gale saw them first. He hit the office window so hard the glass cracked. Gale gave a sharp warning cry. I was asleep at the desk, one hand wrapped in bandages, the seal appraisal window still floating at the edge of my vision. The alert opened before my eyes fully focused. The system window said, Emergency quest. Defend Greyfen from Beast Crown Raid enemy objective. Breach South Pasture Seal community reward. Prevent seal collapse personal reward. Guardian field prototype failure. Sovereign air extraction and sanctuary collapse. The yard erupted. Darren got the workers into lines. Myra activated the task board. Lysa dragged medicine crates into the office. Torn opened the old handler chest he had avoided since I arrived. Inside were silver bells, cracked oath tags, and a moon-colored collar with no chain attached. Vale saw it and growled. Torn looked ashamed. Torn said, old tools, before Grayfin went wrong. Torn said, can they help? Torn said, they can remind, not command. I said, then use them. The attackers hit the north gate first. 6 forced beasts slammed into the new pen ward. Chain-eyed wolves, a horned bear, 2 black crows burning with fever light, and a root-tangled stag with white charm nails hammered into its antlers. Behind them walked masked handlers. Morkant was not there in person. He did not need to be. Every collar carried a piece of him. The system opened the force mark map. Red lines crawled across the yard, showing control threads from collar to handler to south pasture. I almost forgot to breathe. Then the map simplified. The system window said, Guardian Field Prototype available. Spend 2 levels worth of stored experience. Effect. Reveal force control threads to nearby allies for 10 minutes. The system panel continued. Cost, delayed personal level growth, a fair trade, a painful one. I said yes. The yard flashed blue. This time other people saw part of it, not the text, the threads. Darren shouted, I can see the lines. Myra looked at me. Darren said, that was you. Darren said, 10 minutes. Darren said, then stop talking. The fight became possible. Gale cut control threads from the air. Cinder marked poisoned collars. Brawn tore up mud around charging beasts. Vale and the pups held frightened stock away from the gates. Prism stood in the center yard, not attacking, only lowering panic so free beasts did not trample workers. I ran where the map burned brightest. Weak body, useful eyes, that was my role. The first forced wolf crashed through a side fence. Rook, the smallest moonhound pup, moved before Vale could stop him. He was tiny, ridiculous, terrified. He bit the wolf's chain. Silver-black fire burst from his teeth. The system snapped open. The system window said, "Emergency awakening condition met. Target, Rook protected chosen shelter from forced beast route. Moonfang Night Runner warning, young body unstable output." Rook did not wait for my permission, he chose. Moonfang ran across his fur, his legs lengthened, his crescent brow mark ignited silver. The system announced, "Awakening registered." He became no larger than a young hound, but his shadow stretched across the yard like a wolf under full moon. He snapped the forced wolf's chain, the wolf collapsed free. Vale stared at him, shocked and proud at once. The system added him to the emergency roster. System window said, "Ally awakening registered." Rook, Moonfang Night Runner bond status, ally function, breaks pursuit chains, protects shelter paths. Good, another helper, another cost. Because the moment Rook awakened, the South Pasture seal screamed. The system window said, "Sanctuary integrity, 11%. Collar ring wanted that reaction." Morkant's voice rolled across every collar at once and said, "Every awakened bloodline calls the air closer." The ground split near the sealed hall. Prism ran toward it, I ran after her. Myra shouted my name, but the map was already burning red. The silver egg had cracked. Inside the lower hall, light pulsed through stone and root. The tiny sovereign heir pushed one hoof through the shell, not fully hatched, not ready, pulled. The root-tangled stag smashed into the pasture fence behind us. Darren and Braun hit it from opposite sides. Cinder dove and marked the charm nails. Rook flashed under its legs and bit the pursuit chain. I reached the egg just as a force control thread shot from the wall toward it. Bond breaker could not reach, too far. Prism stepped between the thread and the egg. Her chest crystal flared until the old fracture shone white. We reached the old chamber under Grayfin at noon. It was not a prison, it was a record hall. Stone antlers rose around a pool of still blue water. Names of old herds lined the walls. Torn touched one plate and lowered his head. He said, "Grayfin was not built to own beasts." Torn said, "It was built to shelter the ones nobles broke." Myra found the founder oath carved around the pool. The letters lit when Prism stepped closer. Aster answered next. The little heir pressed his forehead to my palm. The system opened, sanctuary record found. Grayfin founder rule, protect chosen bonds. No chain shall replace trust, no title shall overrule choice. That was the whole truth of the ranch. Simple, clean, powerful. Selene had turned beasts into property. Grayfin had been built to stop people like her. The witness slate in Seraphine's hand captured every word. So the final path became clear. We did not need more mystery. We needed public proof. We carried the record back above ground. We did not even reach the yard before the horns sounded. Selene had come early, not alone. Riders filled the road. Witness banners went up by the gate. The academy clerk stood on a platform with 2 record mages. Every nearby rancher, trader, and appraiser had been invited. Selene wanted a public crushing. I wanted a public reversal. The field trial started the moment we stepped into the yard. The clerk announced the terms. Grayfin must prove control without abuse. Grayfin must prove growth without illegal mutation. Grayfin must prove shelter status deserves protection. Selene pointed at Prism. She said, "That cub was dying in the disposal hall." Selene said, "Now she rises in rank overnight." She pointed at me next and said, "He is either lying, cheating, or using a banned method." The crowd stirred. I did not answer first. I raised the witness slate. I said, "Grayfin's founder oath says chosen bonds come first." I said, "So let the beasts answer before the nobles do." The clerk allowed it. Prism stepped into the center circle. Small body, bright eyes, no fear this time. The appraisers read her public window. Level 12. F-rank route stabilized. Crowd noise rolled across the yard. Selene smiled again. She said, "Still weak." Then she ordered the radiant stag forward. Gold light flashed across its collar. The stag obeyed, not because it wanted to, because the collar heard it until it moved. The system projected the truth above its antlers. Forced collar active, loyalty unavailable, growth unstable. Gasps moved through the crowd. Selene's expression tightened. She snapped, "A trick." I raised my hand toward the projection. I said, "Then let the witness slate test it." Seraphine pressed the slate against the collar glow. The record crystal screamed. Blue data spilled into the air. Suppression marks, pain triggers. Forced compliance spikes. Illegal override code. The crowd stopped whispering. Now they stared. Selene saw the room changing, so she did what people like her always do. She tried to win by force. Selene ordered, "Take the cub." The radiant stag lunged. Prism moved first, not away, forward. She jumped between me and the stag. My hand found her shoulder. The system exploded open. Evolution conditions met. Feed complete, treatment complete, trust complete, territory complete, time threshold cleared. Hidden ceiling route available, accept evolution? I said yes. Prism set it back by standing her ground. Light burst from her chest crystal. The whole yard turned white and teal. Small antlers split into branching silver gold horns. Her body grew taller, leaner, brighter. Roots of light ran under her hooves. The crowd shielded their eyes. Selene took one full step back. When the light cleared, Prism stood transformed. Guardian Stag Root awakened, level 12 to level 20. Rank rise confirmed, not through chains, through care, through trust, through choice. The radiant stag skidded to a stop. Prism did not attack it. She touched her new antlers to the ground once. A calm pulse spread through the yard, not dominance, invitation. The system translated the moment. Chosen bond resonance detected. The radiant stag shook. Its collar flashed harder. Pain spikes climbed. The poor thing tried to bow. Prism stepped closer instead. She pressed her forehead to its neck. My new skill window opened. Covenant hand. Break forced marks inside Grayfin territory. Cannot force loyalty, can only free it. That was enough. I grabbed the collar. The pain hit like fire through my wrist. I kept holding on. Prism held the stag steady. The crowd watched every second. Selene shouted for guards. Darren planted his spear across the trial line. Myra stood beside the clerk and never moved. She said, "Let the record continue." The witness slate captured everything. I pulled. The collar cracked once, twice. Then it shattered into gold and black dust. The radiant stag staggered. For one terrifying second, nobody moved. Then the beast lifted its head on its own. No forced bow, no pain flash, no order. It looked at Selene. Then it turned away from her. The entire yard erupted. Some people shouted. Some cheered. Some just stared like their world had been rearranged. Selene tried to call the stag back. It did not move. She reached for another control seal. The witness mages seized her wrist first. Illegal beast coercion was already in the record. Publicly, cleanly, completely. The clerk's voice shook, but he read the ruling anyway. The clerk read the ruling. Grayfin Ranch passes inspection. Prism's growth is recognized as lawful bonded evolution. The clerk continued, Lady Selene Brindle is placed under formal inquiry for forced collar abuse and illegal suppression methods. That was the public reversal. But Prism still needed the answer only she could give. The freed radiant stag walked toward Prism, toward me, toward the open gate. Everyone waited. The beast lowered its head, not in submission, in thanks. Then it touched the founder stone beside the gate. The old Grayfin crest blazed to life. The sanctuary record answered the gesture. Guardian sanctuary acknowledged. Grayfin status upgraded. Ranch level 3 to level 5. Shelter permit restored. Condemned stock protection charter approved. Community reward unlocked. The yard filled with windows. Water output increased. Pen stability increased. Feed efficiency increased. Bond cap increased. Prism nudged Aster forward. The little heir trotted into the sunlight and stood beside her. There was no hidden chamber pressure now, no prophecy speech, just a safe yard. A safe herd and a system that finally matched what we had built. Myra took the ruling sheet from the clerk. She said, frame this one. Darren laughed for the first time in days. Torn pretended he was not wiping his eyes. Gale screamed from the roof like he had won everything personally. Braun rammed an empty bucket in celebration. Hollow bounced high enough to splash 3 nobles at once. Even the crowd began to relax because the ending was finally clear. The weakest cub had become Grayfin's proof. The noble who called her trash had lost in public. The chained stag had walked free, and the ranch built for rejects now had legal standing again. The clerk raised one last notice. He read, by Academy witness and civic record. The witness said, Grayfin is recognized as a protected guardian ranch. That was the line I wanted. Simple, complete, earned. Selene was escorted away, still arguing. No one listened. The radiant stag stayed by the gate a little longer. Then it chose the hills beyond Grayfin. Free beasts should choose their own roads. Prism watched it go. She did not look sad. She looked proud. When the crowd finally cleared, workers raised a new sign over the repaired entrance. Grayfin Guardian Ranch, no bankruptcy tag, no seizure seal, no shame. I stood under the sign with Prism at my side. Aster leaned against her foreleg. Myra held the ledger like a weapon she finally trusted. The system opened one final panel. First territory SAVED. Protected herd status recognized. Next objective, grow the sanctuary. Good, that was a next step, not a missing ending. I looked at the herd. Every quest had saved someone. Every reward had changed the ranch. Every small level up had led here. I touched Prism's forehead. She chirped once. No extra reward appeared. It did not need to. I woke in this world with a power to see hidden rank. In the end, that was not what saved Grayfin. Touch only opened the door. Trust built everything after it. I touched the weakest one first, and together we changed what this world called worthless.